Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name is GBay99. I hope you all are having a wonderful day. Today, we have a bit of an unusual video for you. Today, I want to discuss what is apparently an impending Irelia rework that is going to be in the works in not too long. A lot of people have been tweeting at me recently asking what my opinions on all this are because I am a bit of an Irelia one-trick pony, and so today I thought I would dedicate a video on the subject. Now, for those of you who don't know, you can actually go to the Riot Games website and see which champions reworks are coming up. Currently, at the time of me making this video, there are 3 champions listed. Ryze is going to be getting his billionth rework that's going to be coming up soon, followed up by the Yorick rework, which we've been waiting on forever, and then Warwick following him. That's all that's currently listed at the moment, but earlier this week, a Rioter went on the boards and listed off some champions that they say are currently on their high priority target list for getting reworks, and of course, unfortunately, Irelia is one of them. This is a very complicated issue, and I am obviously biased, very biased on the subject, so I'm going to try and explain this from every angle and be as unbiased as I can possibly be. So let's go ahead and start off by explaining what it is I find so fascinating and so addicting about Irelia's gameplay. This is a question I've been asked a lot in the past, and I'm never really able to pin it down in a satisfying way, but if I had to answer with a single ability, the reason I like Irelia so much is simply because of her Q. If you think back to some of the original 40 champions released in League of Legends, if Irelia was among them, I have a very strong suspicion that Irelia's Q would just be a very basic gap closer. It would be something like Jax's Leap Strike, where maybe it deals some damage, maybe it procs Sheen, and maybe it can crit or something like that, but it doesn't really do that much. It's just a gap closer. It would have been so easy for Riot to make this ability boring, but they added a little tweak to it, a little extra something, where every time you kill a champion or minion with that ability, the ability will reset and you'll be refunded mana. That is maybe the best design decision that I think exists in all of League of Legends. That might be a pretty bold statement, but I honestly think it's true. I mean, that makes this ability so much more fun to use. It makes it so dynamic. It gives it such a high skill cap where you can do so many fun things, and it doesn't really make the champion that overpowered. I wouldn't say it's that big of a buff to the champion where it makes the champion suddenly super broken because she has that, and removing it would just bring her in line or make her super under. Like, I don't think it's something that's a make or break sort of thing for the champion, but it's a little bit of a bonus that makes her so fun to play and gives her such a high skill cap. Nothing with Irelia is more satisfying than using her Q to gap close a ridiculous distance because all the minions just line up perfectly to secure a kill that was about to get away. It's not something that makes her super broken because you can't typically use that to jump onto people unless you already have a pretty good chance of killing them anyway, but it's still so fun to use, and it's something that I can never get enough of. Not only do I think this ability is super fun to use and pretty balanced, but I also think it's a super dynamic ability in a really interesting way that I'm not too sure if we see with any other champion. Think about it like this. If Irelia's Q didn't have that reset, you would just use her Q as a gap closer, right? You would use it like a Jax Leap Strike where you just Q to your opponents, you would gap close to them, you would deal as much damage as you could possibly do, and then that would be it. But because your Q has this reset, it actually makes it optimal for you to not Q to your opponents. Queuing to a full health enemy is probably the worst way you could use the ability, and that's a really interesting thing to think about. It's much more beneficial for you to Q to a minion next to them because you can use your E to stun your opponent, where if you're queuing directly to your opponent and you're both at full health, you're only going to get a slow. It's super effective for you to last hit your opponent with your Q if you want to jump to another opponent that's nearby, or jump to a minion to escape a tower that's attacking you, or there's a number of different ways that you can use your Q, and the way that you would use it if you didn't have this reset ability is the worst way you possibly can now. I think that's a really interesting thing about the Q, and it's the biggest thing that I love about playing Irelia. I think it's the most fun thing to do in League of Legends, which is why I constantly play her all day, every day. So you're probably asking yourself at this point, if Irelia's design is so perfect, why is it that Riot is reworking her? And the reason I think, or I suspect at least, what I would hope the reason Riot is reworking her is because of her E ability. Irelia's E, of course, is the ability where you stun your opponents if they have more health than you do, and you slow them if they don't. This is something that, it's a really interesting mechanic that I kind of like, and it feels cool and dynamic when you first think about it, but at the same time, it's something that it becomes problematic very quickly. Being an Irelia player, I don't think it's like that much of a problem because I'm not playing against Irelia that often, but I can kind of understand if Riot thinks this ability isn't very fun to play against because, firstly, it's not fun getting stunned for 2 seconds. That's never fun. I mean, playing against a Fiddlesticks, you guys know how frustrating it is when you have endless CC on you. But the thing thing about Irelia's E is it kind of feels like there's a way to play against it, but there isn't really one in practicality. Like, let's say an example. Let's say you're playing against an Irelia top lane, an Irelia that's doing pretty well, getting a little bit fed and has some kills where she can kill you 1 versus 1, and you want to try and play around letting her stun you. All you can really do is let the Irelia kill you and then fight back, because if you're at lower health percentage, then you're not going to be able to get stunned by the Irelia. She will always slow you if she's using that E. But if the Irelia just saves it, you kind of just have to let her beat on you and then fight back after you're a little bit. Like, you can never start killing the Irelia faster than she's killing you, or she's going to get a stun on you and then finish off the kill. That feels very weird and frustrating to play against. Imagine in a team fight, if you're playing in a team fight and you're trying to protect your AD carry, focusing down the Irelia just lets her get a free stun on the AD carry. You can kind of maybe go for like crowd control to slow her down, but of course Irelia's passive is the one that reduces crowd control based on how many people are around her. Playing against an Irelia in lane, you can know how frustrating this ability is, and when you really think about it, it can be kind of maybe not the best gameplay. I would say there are many champions in League of Legends that have worse gameplay than this, but I can kind of understand if Riot has a bit of a problem with it. At least with them announcing that they want to rework Irelia, I hope that's the reason and not something like they think she deals too much damage, or they think something else with her kit is wrong, because I've in my opinion at least, the rest of her kit is pretty okay. So if this rework does end up coming around in the upcoming year, what is it that I hope to see from it, and what is it that I think we can expect? Any other Irelia players out there? Well, in my opinion, there's a number of things. I would really hope that Riot updates her lore. Like, she's not a very cool champion thematically. She's kind of bland. I don't really know anything about Irelia's personality, and I don't really care to learn anything, because in terms of her lore, she's kind of boring. But beyond that, gameplay-wise, I would just hope that Irelia's Q does not get touched. I think her Q, as I said earlier, as I just sort of went on and on and on about how much I love the Q, obviously I hope that it would have very minimal changes, maybe a slight tweak here or there, because there are some bugs with the Q right now, like getting resets when you aren't killing things. That would obviously be something that you would want to fix if you could. But beyond that, leaving the Q alone, I would also hope that the W doesn't get touched too much, because I think her W is the reason that you pick Irelia over like a Fiora or a Jax top lane or someone. You know, having the built-in sustain and also a little bit of true damage to deal with tanks and also burst down squishier characters. I think her playstyle is very distinctive, and the kind of damage she deals is measured more through her W than any of her other abilities. That's what makes her Irelia, and not just a clone of Jax or a clone of Darius or a clone of Fiora or any other character top lane. Her E ability might get changed during the rework, and it might get changed to something like Tarek's new E, where it's no longer a point and click stun, but like a skill shot, an AoE, and delayed. Maybe something like that would be what Riot would want to do to balance out the E. And then they might want to change the ultimate a little bit too. I don't know if they would. I don't think the ultimate is something that necessarily is like a core Irelia thing. It's a little bonus that's fun to use, and it's also useful to proc Sheens and to heal up and to like get yourself to low health so you guarantee stuns, but then also keep yourself alive because you heal a lot. Right now, actually, I'd say Irelia's abilities work really well in conjunction with each other. They all feel like they're necessary and they're really fun to use, and they flow really well together in a fun way. But at the same time, if Riot is going to be changing some of them, I don't think there's any change that Riot could make where it makes Irelia more balanced or more fun to play against without pissing off Irelia mains. I think Irelia is really fun right now, and there isn't really any change that Riot could make that would make her better. I guess I'm starting to ramble here a bit, so I'm just going to say the bottom line here is if Irelia gets reworked or changed in any way, then I suspect, and I would kind of hope, that the abilities that end up getting changed are her E and then maybe her passive. Outside of that, I would think that Riot would only be tweaking things and fixing bugs. Like, you know how in the mid-season mage update, a lot of champions like Kennen or Swain or Malzahar, they still got updated, but they kept a lot of their core abilities and their core theme. I would hope a similar thing happens with Irelia, where her Q gets to stay the same, where maybe her W is only tweaked in minor ways, where her ulti is maybe tweaked in minor ways, or, you know, stuff like that. The Riot rework department has been kind of hit or miss lately. I mean, you could even go all the way back to the reworked Rise that happened and just take a look at that and see how a lot of the reworked champions that get released are either super overpowered or super underpowered, and very rarely anything in between. You could say that about the reworked Rise, or you could say that about the more recently reworked Malzahar or the reworked Swain or something like that, where I'm really nervous at the idea of Riot reworking Irelia, and I'm really nervous that she's not going to be as fun or as good. You know, right now she's kind of a pick or ban type of champion because of the buffs that went to Triforce and because of the buffs that she had a couple patches ago on her Q, and it's really not fun as an Irelia main seeing her constantly banned or picked away from me. One of the reasons I've enjoyed playing Irelia so much over the past few years is because she's been a really balanced champion for the most part. She's never been a pick or ban champion in LCS, she's never been super overpowered at the top tier of competitive play, and she's never been super crazy OP in solo queue to a moment where she's getting banned constantly for months on end. If Riot really does feel the need to rework her because they think her gameplay needs some changes or some sort of update, then I guess that's kind of something that, I guess my complaining isn't going to do too much to stop it, so I would hope that only the E changes and maybe a few other things. But I guess I'm repeating myself now, and there really isn't anything we can do to guess what the rework is going to be. All we can do is sit back and hope it gets delayed as much as the Yorick one has. Anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed watching this video and listening to me rambling on about Irelia. I will see you all in tomorrow's new video at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, but until then, thank you very much for watching, good luck in solo queue, and have a wonderful day.